everybody. I'm Ann Hunt. I'm the Sustainability Director and work with Mayor Chris Coleman in the City of St. Paul. As many of you know, I had the privilege to live on a houseboat in the on the Mississippi River for almost 20 years at the St. Paul Yacht Club. I continue, and every day I was blessed to see the bald eagles and the great blue herons and the little warblers, to see boaters and kayakers and fishermen and people using the parks that we built and live on the housing. Now I've moved to Upper Landing, as many of you know, so there's a good contingency here from the Upper Landing as well. So as part of the mayor's work, or working with the mayor, I'm fortunate to be able to serve on the Riverfront Corporation Board of Directors and on the National Mississippi River Fund Board. So I've had a lot of deep connections to the Mississippi River, and my work at the city continues and enables me to keep working on the river. So tonight, I'm really pleased to have you all here and join us for the next phase of the Great River Park master planning process. And I'd like to try to introduce tonight Mike Hom, our new Parks and Rec Director, who's fabulous if you haven't had a chance to meet him. So here's Mike Hom, Parks and Rec Director.
Thank you, Ann. I'm sure some of you would debate whether I am either fabulous or new, but I'll take the round of applause nonetheless. After a really long time and a lot of hard work by many people in this room, it's my privilege tonight to welcome you to not only Harriet Island Regional Park, but to the Great River Park. Absolutely. It's wonderful to see so many people here tonight as we launch the Great River Park planning process. This process is really essential as we look forward to what we are going to do with the Mississippi River as we connect, as we look at the next phases of our, how it connects to ecology, water quality, transportation, parks planning, parks acquisition, all aspects of what we do, recreation, trails, everything that touches the river. This planning process builds on 15 years of what has been successful riverfront revitalization. I think you have to look no further than Harriet Island and this building as great examples of things we've done along the way that have worked tremendously in St. Paul. Whether it's been the Wabasha Bridge, the Upper Landing, Harriet Island, parks and trails, all of those things individually have been great successes. What this effort does is bundle all of our efforts together and our thoughts as a community looking forward under one umbrella to pull those things together in one planning process. So now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce my boss, the mayor of the city of St. Paul. And there is no greater supporter of parks and recreation and the value of conservation than Mayor Chris Coleman. So please welcome to the stage Mayor Chris Coleman.
Thank you, Mike. You know, Mike was saying that he didn't really appreciate the river until more recently in his life. The reality of it is he's kind of the perfect example of St. Paul as a city of neighborhoods, in the sense that when you grow up in a certain neighborhood, you never really move out of it. Mike never moved like more than 2 blocks away from Como Park his entire life until actually I named him Director of Parks and Rec. I actually had to take him down to the river. I said, Mike, you know, I don't know if you heard about this thing called the Mississippi. I know it's no Como Lake, but I hope that you can get to appreciate it as much as some of the rest of us. This is really a remarkable thing that we celebrate here today, that we launch here today. It's not a new process. It's not a new beginning. It's really a continuation of so many years of effort on the part of so many different people that have really believed in the vision and the power of the river. I was thinking about, just as we look out over this little spot here, how that has transformed over the years, whether it was the realignment of Shepherd Road or whether it was the Science Museum that really took full advantage of its location on the river, the reclaiming of the head house, sack house, into one of the, just a spectacular asset on the river. The new housing here, we have a lot of residents from across the street. across the river rather, that have called the river home. The fact that we no longer have not only the smokestack that was on the other side of the high bridge, and that was hard to lose because it was always my kids they knew when they were getting close to home when we got past the smokestack. But think about the tons and tons of mercury emissions and everything else that was pouring out of that smokestack to change into a much greener, much cleaner energy source. That was really a remarkable effort on the part of so many different folks' part. Now we're ready for the next phase of what's going to happen. We're ready to take this to the newest and the highest level. There are a lot of cities across the world, across the United States, across North America, that want to claim their relationship to the rivers upon which they were founded. Some do it better than others, but I am convinced that we will do it better in the city of St. Paul than anywhere else in this entire country. And it is not to take away from other rivers' efforts, but we have something unique here. The combination of urban landscape with wilderness, the combination of people power, the combination of a vision, all of these things are coming together in a way that, quite frankly, I don't think exists other places. We've had so many folks that have been a part of this effort, and so many people are going to need to continue to keep that vision alive. I could go around this room and I could thank each and every one of you, but I want to just say collectively, congratulations, thank you very much. Let's go into this next phase and let's keep on doing right by the Mississippi and by our community. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the City of St. Paul and St. Paul Parks and Recreation, my thanks for being here, and with your help, I'd like to welcome to the stage Bill Wenk from Wenk & Associates. Bill.
What a room full of people. It's incredible to see this sort of turnout and this level of interest in the river. I have to say, and we've worked all over the country, that this number of people coming to an event is rare. So you all should be you should applaud yourself for the support that you've shown the river over the years. And I think that's an important point, is that we're really continuing a process. And it's a process that most recently, I think a number of you have been involved in. Two plans, the Downtown Framework Plan and most recently the River Framework Plan. And this is the result. This is a product of just a few years ago. And we've heard questions, well, why are you planning again? We keep planning. And the fact is, the city's been planning for well over 100 years. But the essence of this plan and many of the plans before it were that the river should be more natural, more urban, and more connected. And it's always been our view that it's really about the river and the community and how everything links together into a series of systems. So that interconnection at many, many levels really is the essence of how we've thought about the city. This is a plan over 120 years ago that HWS Cleveland drew for the City of St. Paul Park System. You'll see a lot of things on there, if you look very closely, are very familiar. For example, Como Park, an early plan from Como Park. And it got built. The people came, and they've continued to come over the last 100 years, so that it's one of the most visited places in the state of Minnesota. So that sort of success and that sort of perseverance that you all are demonstrating really has a long history. And it's based on, I think, the pride of the community, the celebration of the natural environment that you live in, and your ability to look forward. What we're seeing now, in my mind, is a new era. And I love this progression of photographs of downtown, the Phelan Valley, where the top photograph, you can see the intensity of industrial use and rail line development, over time it slowly fades away. So now, in the valley, we have large areas that are really ready for the next era of the city to form itself. There's been a great deal of planning, and as Mike said, we're the ones that are really going to try to pull the pieces together and carry it forward in a way that even immediately after this plan is complete, implementation can begin. So it's very practical. At the same time, if we don't, at the end of this process, bring forth some ideas that collectively we would have never thought about individually, we'll not have done our job properly. So that notion of vision is very important, as well as the notion of implementation. So you're about to embark on a process that when your children's children wonder, well, where did this come from? You can look back and say, well, you know, this has been a 200-year process that we've been involved in, and it continues to refine over time. I'm going to show you some projects now that we've been in and others have been involved in that illustrate what it takes to bring visions to reality. This is the Menominee Valley in Milwaukee. You can see Lake Michigan in the background. This is a photograph out of probably the 50s. So the large industrial area you see in the foreground is an old rail manufacturing and maintenance facility. This is that same site when we got involved about 10 years ago, if you have really good eyes, and I'm going to point it out here. You can see chimneys in the middle of the image. It's the only thing left of that industrial complex. The city lost jobs. It had the same issues of polluted soils, polluted waters as you do and I know are dealing with on an ongoing basis. But we developed a vision for the valley that showed a great number of new jobs, a job-rich and light industrial environment, and most importantly, a spine of parks that serve to clean water, provide recreation, provide habitat, and really tie together neighborhoods that historically walked to work in the valley. And over the last 10 years, that plan has slowly come to fruition. And here you can see the chimneys, a water quality wetland, a series of natural habitats that will evolve over the next generation into a very diverse ecology that brings nature more into the heart of the city. And it also serves to clean water, polluted water that comes off of the adjacent neighborhoods and off of the light industrial area. And probably as importantly, these are new businesses that have moved into the valley. They've moved here because of the environmental and the community-based approach to planning that involves protection and restoration of the environment, concern for the community, as well as jobs. So that layered agenda, that notion of revitalizing the city and restoring nature is at the basis of what we propose here. You know, you can see some familiar things in the valley, the old power plant and the potential that it holds, and other relics of the industrial past. That's not unlike a power plant in Denver, and you can see the same sort of building here with a tall stack. That's the same plant today in the foreground. It's now an REI flagship store. It is probably one of the most visited attractions in downtown Denver. It's at the crux of the Platte River, at the confluence of the Platte and Cherry Creek, and on a daily basis there are thousands of people that pass through on the trails, that visit REI. You can see in the upper left a park. That's actually a parking garage with a park on the top of it that REI built for the community. You can buy a Starbucks there. I know it's not local. It should be a Dunn's or something like that. And you can take a kayak out of REI, try it out in the river before you buy it. So that connection to the river is an essential part of, I think, how the success of REI. Inside, you can see the turbines in the historic photograph and the climbing wall that's at the center of the store. So I think when you look at the valley now, it's hard to imagine what it might be, especially with some of these abandoned buildings, with some of these elements that you just don't know what to do with. But I think with patience and with your involvement and with your ideas and your enthusiasm, and most importantly, kind of this unified support, these sorts of things can happen. Even something like a sewage treatment plant. This is along the Platte River, and I have to say, Denver doesn't really have a river. You have a real river. You can walk across the Platte River. But in Denver, we have the same sort of issues that you do, that you have relics of the past that are there. You don't quite know what to do with them. Here, was a plant that was just too expensive to tear down. So we worked with the City of Denver Parks Department to save those parts of the plant that were the stoutest, that were the most difficult to destroy, created a park, created a series of wetlands to clean stormwater off of adjacent neighborhoods, and to create what is now a landmark along the river. So as you go up and down the corridor, as you think about what it might be, look at those relics, look at those elements of the industrial past, and think about, gee, what could this really be? How can we use this? How can we preserve and really celebrate some of that very proud and important tradition of the industrial use of the working river that is the Mississippi? There's some real challenges. One of the main challenges is connecting neighborhoods to the river. Shepherd Road, Wagner Road, the railroads, the bluffs themselves, something that define the river in many ways, are some of the toughest challenges that we face. How to cross those barriers is key. You know, virtually every city is facing those same challenges. And back to Denver, sorry I'm using Denver a lot, but I know it well. What you see here are a succession of 3 bridges. The one in the foreground, the arch, crosses Interstate 25. You can see very small in the middle distance, it's a little river, a bridge across the Platte River. And then the big toothpick sort of thing at an angle, it crosses the rail lines. So that the High Lines, a historic neighborhood that is revitalizing, connects to the downtown and becomes a much more integral part of the Platte Valley, the downtown, and the core of the city. And here you can see the reverse. I'm standing on top, essentially, on top of the rail lines. There are daily and hourly freight lines that run by million-dollar condominiums in the valley, so that juxtaposition, while it might seem improbable, and certainly you've done some of that here, I think there's a great deal more opportunity for both new neighborhoods and new jobs in the valley that meet all of those multiple agendas that we talked about. And of course, we can't forget the neighborhoods that are here. How can they connect to the river? Where should new neighborhoods be? What should they be like? How dense should they be? Those are the sorts of things that we need from you all, that give us the source material from which we'll develop and articulate a vision. Should they be denser? How important should the river be, and how important should some of these new neighborhoods connect? How should they connect to the river? These are all very important connections, or important issues. How green should they be? One of our agendas is that we should prepare a set of guidelines that are the next generation of sustainable practices, so that if we build, when we build, that these buildings demonstrate the city's kind of environmental responsibility and commitment to sustainable practices. Remember, in Milwaukee, some of the employers moved there, and these are actually international companies. They came to that site because of the environmental agendas that it demonstrated. For example, a wind turbine manufacturer is locating there because of the green agendas of the new industrial area. So that is a priority to us. Ultimately, it's about bringing people into the valley, bringing people into the corridor, connecting them to the river, and really educating everyone about the benefits of the valley and what it is as a resource now, and how it can even be better, how it can balance economy, environment, and sustainable practices. We have already begun the process of planning. It's going to be roughly a year-long process. We have a schedule back there. It's fairly general in terms of when the meetings are, but we're going to have 5 meetings like this. Some of them will be much more targeted on individual districts along the river, along the study corridor, which is 17 miles. But they'll be publicized. We want to make sure we know who you are, and so that we can inform you of the next meeting. So I know there's a postcard out there. If you see people with badges and buttons, talk to them. Make sure that you get a card, that we get your address, your phone number, your email address, however you need to communicate, so that we can get your feedback.
As we pursue individual agendas and goals around this work, that being successful as a community, our individual goals aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, so they can all come together and be part of what is really a great vision for St. Paul. So thank you. Last comment, at 8:30, the movie will be playing outside. Stick around for that. Enjoy what is a great night in St. Paul, and my thanks for coming. Have a good evening.